Yeah, so welcome back, everyone. I was just talking with John. He gratefully, you don't always know what goes on behind the scenes, but John had to download Chrome. We had to go through a bunch to make this happen. So anyway, John from EventConnect, appreciate you hopping on today and excited to dive into this one.
Good to see you, Andrew. Thanks, man.
It's always a pleasure. So give us the quick, 1 minute, 2 minute background, who you are, how you got into this, and then we'll start to dive deeper into EventConnect and the macro ecosystem as a whole.
I have no idea how I ended up here. I tried to be a rock star when I was 16.
And we see the guitar in the
I used to see
background.
the guitars back here. I mean, I tried to do that. It was let's see, I did 10 years of that. Tried to become a rock star. It's really freaking hard to do that. But I ended up falling into coding when I was a kid. My dad bought me a computer when I was probably 6. So we started this journey of EventConnect, when we tried to help solve the problem in youth sports, where there's registration platforms and housing platforms and scheduling platforms and mobile apps, and everything's so disconnected. And we said, we've got to have a better way to sort of bring all this together so the parents can have a better experience. And so we started this journey to try to build this, and been doing it for 12 years now. Happy to say that I was the original coder, and then we threw out all that code probably in 2016 and rebuilt it all from scratch. When we started to figure out what actually is going on in youth sports and how unique it is and how different everybody runs it, and the scale of it is actually mind-blowing how big youth sports is. And it's something that you never get to see or touch or feel, because it's not like a Blue Jays game. I'm Toronto Blue Jays are my guys, but you see everybody, 50,000 fans come into a Blue Jays game. You don't get to see that youth sports, right? But you're sending the same amount of people into an event. They're just not all there at the same time ever, right? So it's such a cool industry. And there's so much to build. Our backlog is still 5 years, maybe more than that. It's craziness.
It is crazy.
Fun.
It is crazy. And we did have a Blue Jays legend on at one point. We had Jose Batista.
No way.
Yeah. So Jose's down here in Tampa. And
right on.
Anyway.
I was there for the bat flip, baby. I was there for the bat flip. So that was a good day.
How crazy. And the worst part is I grew up in Pittsburgh, so I was a Pirates fan. And of course, he was another one of our anyway, for another time. But to your point, youth sports, massive. Let's go back, put everyone in the frame of mind. You guys go, okay, here's youth sports. We see this event. I know how to code. People, obviously, we both know Eric, but Eric, also another co-founder. Were you guys what was it like? Hey, this is such a big opportunity. What was the frame of mind where you're like, all right, we have to come in and build? And then why was it the solution it is? And maybe give a little context of what the solution is. But I'm always curious about the frame of mind at the time versus, what it is today.
So I grew up in the coding world, and we had a guy come into us, one of our co-founders, and he was like, I have this idea to try to simplify all of this. Being Canadian, hockey is obviously the number one place to start. And we thought, I think we could probably solve this. So we built a prototype, and we quickly sold the prototype to, I think it was 15 clients in a month. And we're like, whoa. I mean, I don't know how many people have done a startup, but their first 10 sales are brutal. And so we knew we had an idea with a nucleus to start with, that the industry needed something. And how do you solve the problem of registration to hotel booking, to scheduling, to the mobile app? And how do you actually have that communication cross-platform, right? So there's a lot of products out there that do individual components of that, but lacing them together for a tournament director is pretty hard to do with lacing all the APIs together. So we ended up saying, let's build this thing basically open API, but also build the entire platform from a business logic standpoint. So it's been a lot of fun to try to figure out what everybody needs, and to simplify it for the partner, and to simplify it for the parents. And we just think there's a lot of legs here to keep building as far as we can see.
Yeah. Now, did you guys raise capital? Did you bootstrap? Did you just use
yes,
debt? A little bit of everything?
Yeah, I mean, we bootstrapped it for 4 years to try to figure it out. And then when the time came to say, okay, listen, we actually know that there's a business here. It's not just 15 people that want it. The industry was starting to change. And so we did raise capital there, and basically didn't look back, other than for that weird year of 2020, but everything else was great. So, but strangely enough, that 2020 year gave us a head start into coding even more, because we didn't lay anybody off on the dev team. And so we just kept building, because we're like, there was no end to the things we wanted to build, and it was a little quieter. So we just doubled down on it. It was great.
Yeah, it was a crazy year, and I think you see a lot of inflection from that year.
Yeah.
Of like people that either fell off or they were overextended versus the ones that were like, hey, this is temporary, and they doubled down. So it's cool to
Yeah.
hear that actually, a little bump in the road, but accelerated things on the back end of it.
It's no fun being an entrepreneur though and seeing 18 months of no money.
No, that was
Goose eggs every week. You're going, man, this. I hope this ends. So, but it was good. It was a good learning experience for sure.
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure like the resilience of that. Like now, you probably feel like you can handle anything, or if a client call you to try to land a new partner or sale and it doesn't work, you're like, oh, well, whatever. Like this is,
It gave
it's
me all
sort
my
of
gray hair. It gave me all my gray hair too. So thank you.
yeah, some little flavor in it. Now, for I guess I always like to lay the context of for a user, for a listener, if you're a user, you're going to use EventConnect, sort of the journey of like, what does it actually look like? If you're a parent or you're an organization, you guys sign, like what is actually the flow, just so it helps with the visualization of like the actual product and what you
Sure.
guys are doing.
Yeah, so on our side, we basically have 3 suites of products. For the tournament directors, they have all their own dashboards and business logic that they have on their side that they need to run a successful tournament. The hotels have their own interfaces to ensure that they're communicating with the teams. And then we have obviously our public B2C consumer side saying, how do you book a room? How do you register a team for a tournament and all that? So there's really like 3 different areas that we invest in, and we try to keep growing those dashboards and interfaces to keep everybody in sync. So it's a pretty large piece of software at this point, web app that goes through there, and we just keep leveraging that to keep growing.
Yeah, it's super cool from a non-technical person to be like, hey, this all works together. Maybe for technical, now from the go-to-market, how did you guys go attack? Did you go one sport? Did you just go, hey, we'll go after olive youth? Did we go, hey, we're just going to go Canada, a mix of this? And then what was the rollout into, hey, yeah, we can serve hockey in Canada, but how do we serve softball in Florida or whatever it is?
Yeah. We definitely started with hockey. We had our roots in hockey, and where we are in Southwestern Ontario, hockey is the sport, right? Everything else is second class to hockey. And so we had a little network, and that's why I said we got 15 clients pretty quickly to try to go, okay, everybody wants this. But you're right, the leap of faith to get into Southern Texas baseball was like, what's the competition going to be like in order to do that? So as any entrepreneur would know, we tried everything, every single thing you can imagine. We tried. I think we had a 20-person sales team at one point. We were probably irritating everybody in the market because we're calling them and emailing them and texting them and trying to get figured out. From our success really came after 2020, when we kind of reset the whole company and the sales became way more organic. And so the conversations changed to like, would you buy our product? Would you work with us? Blah, blah, blah. Into what do you actually need this thing to be? And so our product started to really shift between this concept of like, oh, if you come on EventConnect, you do it in this linear fashion, into but way better conversations with clients. And those conversations ended up being, in our business, it works like this: up and down, up and down, up and down. Something, take it this simple, is sometimes a team registers, they have their whole roster and they can't register until they have a roster. Then they can come into the platform. And you have the opposite. We don't have a roster, but I need to join the event and I'll get my roster in 6 months from now. And when we first built the product, we had no clue that these opposing points of view were going to be a thing. And so what was interesting in the build was, how do you build something that has a million different ways to interact with it? Because most products, as you know, when you interact, you got to go step A to B to C to E, and you can't jump to E if you don't do B. Or we had to engineer something that allowed flexibility like that. And so that's been a very cool thing to build, and complicated as hell to figure out.
I can imagine.
But us listening to the partners was the key to that, to say like, here's what the industry actually wants. And the better we got at that, the smarter we got at that. Our sales team is now like 3 people. So it's a very different approach to the spray and pray, or whatever you want to call that.
Yeah, no, you got, like you said, you got to try everything, learn, which is really just, you're learning everything, and then whatever works best. There's a lot of interest now, and I hear it all the time, whether they're guests on the podcast or just private conversations, but from a lot of the private equity firms and into youth sports. And, I'm sure you guys have garnered great interest from that. How are you navigating that space? How are you navigating just greater interest in youth sports as a whole, both to capitalize on it more yourselves, but also like to navigate the players coming in that either want part of you, which can be good or bad, or they want to, build up potential competitors.
Yeah, I mean, the private equity game in youth sports, I mean, it blew my mind when it first started. I'm going, what is happening here? I mean, you would never consider that in 2018, ever, 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 ever would have thought of that. One company kind of started that train, but it's really changed since then. So like, I think back to like 2017 and 2018, our typical partner. Now, there's always the edge case to this, but our typical partner, this was a part-time job. Somebody ran like 4 or 5 tournaments a year in their city. Great part-time job. All the sales were done after hours because they had a full-time job doing something else. That has completely flipped over. And I don't know, I bet you it's less than 5% now that it's not their full-time job. Now, I don't think that's all private equity. I think there's been a lot of different scenarios that have shown up here, but definitely private equity coming in has shown that the industry itself has a lot to grow. I think that's why they're interested. They're saying, well, wow, we can start here, but there's still lots of capacity left in the industry to keep growing. And that's why I think what's kind of interesting is to watch that happen and how they're navigating the clubs and the leagues and the tournaments. And, there's good sides to it. There's bad sides, like with everything. But it has definitely made the industry grow up very, very quickly.
Yeah.
I think in a good way. And a lot of it's been a good thing. Some of it's been too greedy. I can see that. In certain ways, we're like, oh, we can just keep this, we can buy it all up and then keep everybody in the same ecosystem. But I don't think that's what the market really wants. Like if you play volleyball or softball or something, and you can only play the same 400 teams, that's not really what the industry wants. The industry wants to be able to play everywhere, play just the best regardless of who owns them. So I think everybody's still trying to figure out how to manage through that.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, like you can look at it two ways, and you brought it up. It can either help it and make actually things potentially cheaper and more efficient and more well run and professional. Or again, there's always going to be in any industry, in anything, a little bit of greed that can pull in of, hey, we have everyone and they have to come here, so we're going to make parking $200. Like you see some stuff like
Nobody
that.
wants that.
Yeah, but you see it happen, right? And so we'll be curious to see how that all plays out. And
I think overall it's done it great. Like it's really put a lot of structure into these companies, a lot of financial structure, a lot of like vision that's come in. Even the people that aren't acquired or down that road, they're thinking like that, which I think is the coolest part of it, really.
Yeah. Do you think if you started building EventConnect today, you could still capture? You think it was better timing then? I'm always curious on the timing because, it's maybe a little more professionalized now and it wasn't as much then, but also maybe you beat the wave.
Yeah. I mean, you're dealing with business logic there, right? So
yeah,
everybody, you talk to is like, you got capitalization needs, you have the drive, and you have timing. And those 3 scenarios, I think there's a 4th that I forget right now, but you can't just pretend if we just started today that it would be the same outcome. Like timing is so key to some of this stuff. And I don't know why that is, but it's just kind of one of those things where you have to grow with the market instead of like show up at the end going, oh yeah, we can acquire all that. It's hard to change people's like what they're doing, right? Like if you get used to doing something one way and you get too big, it's hard to flip that, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what sometimes I always talk about of like private equity is coming into sports, and this is just from abroad. And I'm like, that's good, but sometimes does that also mean you're towards an end of a cycle where everything's built up? They're going to go buy it, roll it, flip it, and then that causes too much centralization, and so then it has to fragment again and innovate to build. But like, it's interesting, and that's you can sit and have a beer and have 3 hours and not get anywhere on a conversation like that. But it is an interesting point across it. Now, as you guys look,
I've heard there's like a 10-year cycle with that, like just anecdotally with business where it centralizes and fragments. And it just does that naturally. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of, I would like to know somebody like an economist that would know how that actually works. That'd be kind of neat to know.
Yeah. And I'm curious, you said capitalization, drive, timing, and then there's a 4th one. That's pretty interesting.
What is the 4th one? I forget.
I don't know, but I'm about to look it up or we'll post it somewhere. But yeah, it's pretty interesting to ride the wave. Now, you mentioned you've been building this for some time, but you still got a bunch of things on the roadmap. how are you guys thinking about it? What's exciting to you of like, hey, we've gotten this far. We're really taking care of a lot of our partners, but we still see boom, boom, boom to make
Yeah.
it even better.
Yeah, I mean, I can break that in. So AI is obviously a huge investment that we're making, right? And like, how do we make our partners' jobs easier? How do you give more data to our hoteliers to give better rates, better timings, and things like that? We talk about AI in all of our businesses. We talk about this, that we want it to kind of magically solve all the business problems we have. But I never hear enough people talk about like, how do you make the thing better and not just try to take away the problems, right? So we think of AI in a way different way than anybody else does, I think. Most times you just want to say, oh, I got a big problem, throw AI at it, it will magically fix itself. That's not going to work. We know things like, what was last year's hotel rate, as an example? What were the market factors in that scenario? Who booked it there? Who wanted to book there? We could give information back to our suppliers to say, here's a model that might work from a pricing model because of this data. And right now you have to kind of keep it flatline because that's as good as it can get right now with like humans doing the analysis on it and not going crazy. Another scenario we have with AI is like, everybody wants reports. So they want 1 million reports for 1 million different things. We have probably 100 different reports in the platform, but that's not enough, right? They want 1,000 reports. So what we've invented is a way to actually have questions into those reports so that report can self-build itself. So we're trying to think of ways to make everybody's life easier and add something brand new to it, which is really exciting to do. The other side of it is like, in our world is the game data. So like the game data is interesting. Like people schedule on the platform. They say this game's going to happen on this field at this time. And then there's a bunch of data that happens with the parents around that time. And so how do we have something way more interactive, way more fun for everybody to use? And we think that's basically something we can be a little differentiator on our side to keep growing. We have to keep investing in registration. We have to keep investing in housing. But I think there's a lot more fun we can bring to the platform than just the transactional components to it.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating because to me, AI and data are pretty complementary, or they're actually like one and the same often, like especially where AI is at today. And again, that's even a super broad term, but like if you just look at a lot of the large language models, like they're really just capture and they're spitting out text. And to be honest, the more I play with them, the less impressed I get.
Right.
I actually think they're like kind of stupid. And I'm like, how are you guys telling me there's AGI and ASI when like I see a lot of mistakes here? Because I know this area really well. And I'm like, that's wrong. But when you look at like the capture of data and then the automate it and tell the story and, it's a little more straightforward. To me, that's where it starts to get super interesting because especially in sports, there's so much data. And then kind of counter to that, which I think this is why you guys are in a really good position in EventConnect. But like, let's say AI does drastically increase and get much better, which I think we all believe it is going to continue to do. Tech becomes a little more commoditized in the sense you can build it faster. But like sports and going to events and playing games and going and staying at hotels and parking, that's not going anywhere. Right. And so it's kind of funny, like you're building these AI tools and data, but you're also like in a space that isn't going to change. That's obviously a huge upside for you guys.
Yeah, we think of it a little differently, right? Like how do you give it a better experience with AI? Like what is the AI going to do, right? So somebody explained this to me years ago. The thing with a computer is the old computer, the computers that we kind of use right now and the software we use either works or breaks. It's true or false, right? And so that they were all coded to have true or false scenarios. Problem you're going to get with AI is it's always going to answer even if it's wrong, and because it doesn't understand what's right and wrong because it's not coded to have an error success rate. So that is a balance that I think many people haven't quite figured out. Is like, sure, you could throw a chat bot and a voice bot and all this other stuff, but it's going to answer 100% of the time, and X% of the times it's going to be wrong. And so we haven't really had to deal with that in coding world because it either passes or fails. And so I think this is going to be a huge learning curve for a lot of us on like, how do you actually go through this phase when you type into a calculator right now, it'll tell you it can solve it or not. Well, with AI, it solves it and it might not be right. That's a weird thing, especially as I am almost 50 and I still have to keep thinking, man, that might not be a true answer when I type it in the calculator. So we'll see. It's cool though. It's fun.
It is. Does it help you with coding at all or actually building? Have you used it like Cursor or any of these things?
Yeah, we have all of our developers use it, and it's the same problem. It's sometimes right, and so what we found is it's not great for like a junior coder because they haven't written enough code to know what's right and what's wrong, and they need to learn that, get that into their brain, get that into their fingers, get that under their fingers. Going, okay, that's a right line, that's a wrong line. And so if you don't know what you need for output, it can get you down a bad path real fast. So it's
You don't
not.
have the fundamentals either because you haven't, like you said, you haven't learned.
Yeah, so then it feels like magic, and you're going, well, that's not really the point of that. It's supposed to help me. So we definitely see efficiency gains, no question, right? But it's not a lock stock 100% success rate at all. And so it's interesting. I mean, all these things you got to keep trying and figuring out and teaching and
Yeah,
training.
just like you're building EventConnect better, someone's building these tools better. So
Yeah,
naturally, it's only a matter of time. It's, yeah, like you said, they're good enough now to use them to, hey, give me advice on this email, or hey, just review my code. But they're not quite good enough, which is I think is good for us as humans, that they're not good
yeah,
enough quite yet to just do
yeah.
everything. And we'll see where that goes. But sports
One
is
of the
going
guys, one of the guys on our staff does his groceries on it. It's 100% success. He goes, I want food for 7 lunches under 150 bucks, and he types that in and gives them a grocery list. Like, that's cool. That's
yeah.
good. That's a good. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, no, I mean the use cases are awesome. Like I don't want to like sit here and like act like I don't use it all day, but for like when you really dive into the nitty gritty, it's like like I want to like yeah. Anyway,
I don't. I don't think it's going to solve our business problems at the pace that everybody thinks.
correct,
You know,
correct.
it's going to help on the edges for a while, and
Yeah,
I think this comes down to like who trains it and how you train it and what you do with that,
yeah,
like anything else, right? So
yeah. And there's also so many different ones in competition, so that plays into it. Now, from a youth sports lens, what are you? Again, you've seen a huge evolution playing that. You've brought up a few points of professionalization, but where do you see it in another 10 years? Like where is this space headed? What's got you excited about it? What's the macro trends that like you're in it? What do other people that aren't as close to the fire, what do they need to know?
yeah, I mean, the growth is crazy. Like the amount of teams that are wanting to travel, the amount of teams that want to play, the kids that want to play. I mean, it's awesome, right? And you hear all these other horror stories that nobody's going outside to play and do all this. We don't see that. We don't see that in our data. The kids are going out there. I mean, I think if there's anything to kind of worry about is it going to get too expensive? But I don't really believe that that's like, I mean, it's always going to be true for some people, but it's something weird, like where these companies figure out how to have a price point for everybody. And whether you're playing way up here or just at your local level, it's all there all the time, right? And I think you can sit there and make an argument and go, well, I don't know if it's affordable for everybody, but we just don't see that. We see the growth continuing. I mean, I think what's going to happen is your local smaller leagues are going to get swallowed up by bigger players, bigger businesses, less volunteers, more real businesses. And everybody that I've met, like 99% of the people I've met in this industry, really care about the kids and really want to have fun and really want to have a good business. So I think it's nothing but up. I think everybody, and there's not enough people doing it, which is why I think you see so much growth in it right now. So I don't see a
Yeah.
slowdown. I think a limiting factor is probably the fields and the rinks. Is those are hard to build, right? They're expensive. People want more and more rinks, fields, diamonds in the same spot. So you've probably seen some of these super parks where you do that. And then the problem with the super park is that you got to keep it full all the time because it's a huge venue. And so how do you balance that, right? I mean, you can't put in 500 teams every single day into a thing like that. But when you want it, you need it. So I think like the real estate is probably the hardest piece to figure out. You've seen the nightmare stories of the super parks that go bankrupt every 10 days. And then the local fields aren't good enough or the local rinks aren't good enough. And so I think the real estate is probably the hardest growth factor.
Yeah, and I think a big piece of that is weather in a lot of places.
Yep.
Number one, and then number two, like schooling, which again, this goes more macro and some of
Yeah.
my thoughts that we'll see how they play out. But I think education's even changing, and I think we're all sort of seeing like the model of going from 8 to 4, whatever school is these days, isn't the best model. And you're seeing a lot more of the academies, and I know you guys know like TPH and do some stuff with them, but like that's more feasible. Like I think even education is going to switch, and then if you can match the real estate, and then you have the tools like you guys, it's you can see like you can
That's
see it.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely see those guys kind of solving a bigger problem where the education and the sports all get brought in together for real in youth sports, and I think that's super interesting. I mean, I think there's a lot of kids that don't want to spend all day every day sitting at a desk.
It would have been 100 times better of a model for me
Oh yeah,
personally, but how you package that and get the right price. There's a lot of other factors, of course. Cool. From Event Connect side, where can people learn more? What's the website? Where can people read reports? Where can people get the lowdown to really, either
well,
work with you, use you, whatever it is?
call me anytime you want. Our website is eventconnectsports.com. We're all over the place, though. We're at all the conferences and things like that. So
Awesome.
happy to chat anytime.
And when you say conferences, you mean sports ones, event ones?
Yep, yep, yeah. We try to go to as many as possible. I mean, we go to a lot of the like tourism types,
Tourism ones. Yeah.
sports tourism conferences. That's really like our wheelhouse, where we're trying to solve the tournament director and the housing and the
Yeah,
scheduling components with all that. But there's so many of them. It's hard to get to them all.
I
But
can imagine.
hit the website up, and we're happy to chat
I
anytime.
love it. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man. It's good to see you.